that I can't hear him.
All right, you should hear me now. Al, you seem to have frozen. Oh, he got disconnected. Hold on. Bear with us, folks. Well, I received from you. All right. So no go here? Hmm. So we are streaming, but this seems to have the Mimo Live connection between Allison and me is no good.
Rick hears Allison. Sandy hears Allison. Oh, there you are. It all just came back.
Okay.
You didn't do that? Oh, that's neat. Huh. Don't touch anything. Well, we are experimenting with something new, which is fun.
Okay. Finally. This was
all right.
I don't like it being quite this touchy.
Yeah. Well, we're experimenting with something new. One of the problems we are trying to solve is that my machine...
Oh, you froze again. Oh, this is not good. Al, I lost you again.
Get good help. There you go. I'm back.
What's
I was
there?
closing. Thought I was closing a Finder window, and I closed Chrome.
Ah, that'll do it.
The nice thing is you're still there. Okay, I am trying to close that. All right, there we go. All right, quit that. Why do I have all this stuff open? All right. I did upload the show a second time, Steve. I added in a photo at the beginning that might have my toe in it.
Yes, it does.
All right.
Nice.
I don't have my usual third monitor up right now because it's too freaking hot here. And the old Apple Cinema display is like having a space heater in the room. So I disconnected it and I tried reconnecting it right before the show. And apparently it's decided not to come right back up. So that's fun. So when I look at the chat, you're used to seeing me go like this. You will now see me go like this. Totally different. I hope that's okay.
Fine by me.
It's crazy. All right, let's do a quick roll call. We got Allison and Steve and Kevin and Brett and Will. And let's see, that's Toby and Ian and John and Nuclear John and Rose and Rick and Rush Sherman is here. Hi, Rush. And Sandy and Tizzy. That's Tisdale. Not John Tisdale. Is it John? I'm so close. And Frank and Zoe. Zoe, I saw that So I saw that you brought some bacon at like 3:21, and I didn't get in until 4:30, and I was really sad.
But it sure smelled good. Even though you left, I could still smell the bacon.
You could still smell it in there.
James Tisdale. James Tiswell.
James.
Is it Tiswell?
So close. Tisdale.
Tisdale.
I think.
How could I forget that?
Same way I thought it was John. All right, let me, so we got roll call taken out of the way. Let me do a little test recording here. Make sure I can record.
Yeah, this should
Hi,
be...
this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com. And Steve's talking at the same time, which is awesome, but it's okay because it's a test recording.
Yeah, they're noticing the show number being off.
Yeah, I don't know how the show number gets there anymore. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com. And Steve's talking at the same time, which is awesome, but it's okay. Could you guys hear that?
Whoops.
Tell me whether you guys could hear playback. And Steve, you don't count because you're not listening in Discord. There. Oh, there you go. Thank you, James. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Rick. All right, cool. I'm going to save right off the bat. This is 693. So go NC app. There you go.
Oh, I see the problem. Yep.
Uh-oh. Save. There we go. That was a little slow. Let's see how my processors are doing what we're doing. Oh, no, it's back. It's at 230. 235. I guess that's not as bad. We're trying to solve the problem of how much my computer has to do when I'm recording. We're trying to offload everything to Steve's iMac because it's more powerful, but my machine is still pretty hammered. All right, I think I'm ready to hit the...
You said 230 relative to what? What was it before?
I thought it was over 300. There it was just 211 when I was looking at it.
That helps. Incrementally.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to start recording, so I'm going to mute you, dear. Bye.
All right.
Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, August 19th, 2018, and this is show number 693. So Steve's video just disappeared. I hope that doesn't mean he got knocked off, but he's still there.
I'm here.
Oh, that's weird.
I just took it down.
Your little picture disappears when you do that. That's interesting. I did not know that.
See, I can up, down, up, down.
Well, wait, make it go away.
It's away. It's gone.
Okay, so no, your little picture went away too. So I see a little picture of you and me on my iPad.
Now? How about now?
You're still there.
Okay. How about now?
Nope, you're still there.
All right.
Can I see you now? Can I see you now? Okay, NosillaCast intro. I want to see how... I bet I nailed it. It felt good. Today is Sunday, August 19th, 2018, and this is show number 693. Oh, a little bit late. And I'm going to bust that up a little bit. Sunday, August 19th, 2018. 93. Okay, there you go. All right. All right, muting Steve again. I had so much fun this week. Wait, that's not going to work. Is it going to be okay? I need to mute that while I'm started, but somebody's got to remind me to unmute that when I get done. All right, here we go. I had so much fun this week working on a special project that it may have impacted the length of this week's show because I didn't do any work on the show till pretty late in the week, but I got to tell you, it made for a really fun blog post, so we'll see how this goes. We also have a special first-time contributor to the NosillaCast, and I think his contribution is going to be fantastic. I had some other fun this week for a given definition of fun. I kicked a table leg and I broke my pinky toe. Now, I'm partially telling you this for sympathy, but I also want to make sure anyone I'm sharing exercise with understands why maybe I won't make 18,000 steps a day right now. Now, of course, I haven't stopped exercising, but running does not appear to be in my near future. I walked on the Strand by the beach today, and while my first mile was 18 and a half minutes, by mile 3, I was up to 14 and a half minute miles, so that's pretty good. Now, my big problem is that I can't burn enough calories walking to meet my goals on Apple Watch. So if you're following me, I want no smack talk about this. Unless, of course, you want to, right? Anyway, I'm not sure how long I'll be on the disabled list. I broke my hand when I was in my 40s, and that took 6 weeks to heal. So I figure, what, a broken toe will heal way faster in my 60s, right? Oh, well. Okay. I want to stop right there just to unmute that. Okay.
I threw a photo of your broken toe in there.
Oh, good. Yeah. So what I love about that picture is the technician's taking the picture, right? And I asked her, could I take a photo of it? And we're looking at it, and she's not allowed to say anything, right? She's not allowed to diagnose anything, but she just takes this white arrow and points at that broken spot, just kind of looks at me and rolls her eyes. And I said, yeah. And so she said, look, your doctor or the nurse practitioner is super careful, cautious, won't tell you anything until the radiologist looks at it, but let me chat with her. Let me show it to her. So the nurse calls me in and she closes the door and she goes, so I'm not a radiologist, but, and you look at this thing, it's like this complete discontinuity of my little toe in the middle of the bone. So, yeah, it's, looks pretty broken, but it doesn't actually hurt that bad. It hurt pretty bad for the first couple of days, but it's actually fine. But I do want sympathy if you have some.
You got some.
Let's start monitoring Allison's weight gain. Exactly, Frank. I was going to say that. I was going to say, so would anybody mock me for lowering my calorie goal? Well, as long as I lower my calorie intake, there should be no mocking, right? But yeah, I don't know, maybe 200 calories a day. I could cut that back. We probably should have a graph showing that. All right, I'm going to mute Steve. Here we go. In Chit Chat Across the Pond this week, I had two extremely special guests. I had Sal Segoyan, who is the man responsible for pretty much all of the automation available on the Mac. He came on the show, and along with Sal was Ray Robertson, who is an amazing teacher of AppleScript. These two guys are some of the sweetest men I've ever met, so patient and kind with beginners, and of course able to challenge even the most experienced programmers. The reason I had them on the show is that they're teaming up to bring us the Command D Down Home Scripting Boot Camp in October. I got to tell you, after listening to them talk about it on Chit Chat, it sounds so fun. Now, I think you'll really enjoy this episode. I started it out by making Sal laugh, so he wouldn't be nervous being interviewed by me. Anyway, the fun pretty much persisted throughout the episode. I'm betting that you'll be intrigued by this class, and if you decide to go, you can get a special price by putting down my coupon code. Now, in the podcast here, I can tell you that coupon code is, of course, PodFeet. But if you go look on the website, it's got subterfuge around it so the scrapers can't just find it. It says things, let's see, I said, I bet you can guess what it is. Everything good starts with it, without the .com, of course. So anyway, if you decide to sign up, make sure you use coupon code PodFeet, and it gets you, I think it was $200 off. In any case, look for Chit Chat Across the Pond or Chit Chat Across the Pond Light, episode number 559 in your podcatcher of choice, or you can always listen directly over at podfeet.com. Well, this week, my old friend Adam Christensen had me on the MacCast for the first time since 2015. I said it that way because that's the way he tweeted it, that his old friend Allison was on the show. I know what he meant. He meant longtime friend, but it was funny anyway. But, Adam and I see each other pretty often. We might have shared a cold beer at Ballast Point in San Diego, and yet we seem to forget to get together on the air. In the news segment, we talk about how group FaceTime is gone for now. We ponder whether Apple is going to make a car. We talk about the rumor that Apple will have pencil support for 2018 iPhones. We wonder whether we'll ever get an AirPods wireless charging case, and if we would spend as much as the rumors say we're going to have to pay for the AirPower Mat. Then I controversially give my opinion on whether we need a new MacBook Air. In the plain old banter section, we talk about Siri, HomePods, and home automation. Let's see, we talk about my mind mapping obsession and some of my productivity tips. He asked me what my latest fun toy is and then called me a nerd for my AC battery blog post. It was a lot of fun between two good friends, so go check it out at the MacCast at, let's see, it's the episode for August 16th. He calls it Podfeet Edition. Back in April, I brought you the sad news that Reggie Ashworth, the developer of App Delete, had passed away. I told you at the time that his family was trying to figure out what to do with the software. Since then, I've been in contact with Reggie's best friend, Hans Tuchel, and he has actually taken on the development of the applications Reggie created. I pinged him just recently, and he said that the development is going well and that he hopes in the next month or so to be able to release an update. He said that this update already works well in High Sierra and Mojave. I'm still very sad every time I think of Reggie, but I'm delighted that it looks like his applications will live on with Hans. If you want to check in on the apps, go to reggieashworth.com. There we go. Let's talk about Steve's mommy next.
Yes, let's do that. She's a good woman.
She's the best. Did I send
think
you?
I keep her.
Did I send you the note she sent me after I wrote that up?
Yeah, that was pretty neat.
Remote networks. She said she printed it off to save it because
we know paper is the way to save things.
No, because I said nice things about her.
Yes.
She said, "You like me. You really like me." Yeah, here we go. This is going to be a fun one. Here we go. All right, muting. Oh, he muted himself. Good job. Good boy, Steve. Nope.
One thing.
My mother-in-law.
Sorry.
Yes.
People are saying that you are quiet in Discord, and I don't know if you can control that somehow, but you are you're just in Discord. You're fine on YouTube.
Are the same people listed to me in both places, or?
Well, people in Discord who are listening to both of us say that I am fine or loud and you are very quiet. People on YouTube say we're both fine. So it's up to you whether you want to deal with that, but I think they're having trouble.
Yeah, I don't know how I would.
So, Rick, when you say that, do you mean, are you listening on Discord or YouTube? Discord. So we're getting some different opinions. I'm not sure how to handle that.
Okay, I can't independently. So I use Audio Hijack to capture my audio, and then it spits out to a virtual audio device called Hangout on Air Input. That Hangout on Air Input is how the audio goes to Discord, how it goes to Steve, and where. And in fact,
this is weird. So Brett,
I think it's the input to Hindenburg as well.
So you're sure you're on Discord? You're listening on Discord, Rick. You're not watching the video.
Why? Okay. What is Rick saying?
He's saying you're fine on Discord, whereas Brett is saying you're very quiet. So we're getting different, and we can't.
So I'll just yell at Brett. Can you hear me now, Brett?
TJ was having the same problem, so I don't know.
Weird.
Sounds like something we can't control right now.
Yeah, I got to tell you, audio on Discord has turned into a real challenge.
Yes, it has.
We've been having all kinds of fun with it. All right, here we go. Muting Steve. My mother-in-law, Merle, is one of my favorite people on the planet. She's one of the kindest, most caring people I know. I know that's weird to say about your mother-in-law, but she really is. This week, she made me love her even more because of how geeky she is. A few months ago, Steve's parents moved from 2 hours away to 4 hours away. It's not that much farther, but they were on the way to Lindsay's house, so if they needed some help, it was pretty easy to stop by. Now, unfortunately, they're in the opposite direction, and it sometimes feels like they've moved to the other side of the planet. This week, Merle sent me an email explaining that her computer could no longer access the internet. Now, most norms in this situation would stop the description right there, but Merle did do some really great diagnosis for me. In her email, she gave me these facts. My father-in-law, Ken's Mac, could access the internet. Her iPad could also access the internet. By the way, all three of these devices are on Wi-Fi. She also said that Netflix and regular TV in her bedroom, I think it's a cable box, those were all working, but the Roku in the living room could not access the internet. She also told me that they had had a power outage the night before. Well, these clues in combination were enough to help me start narrowing down the root cause. If it had only been her Mac, I would have concentrated my efforts there, but as soon as I knew the Roku was offline, I figured it had to be the router at fault. Odd that the other devices were working, but still, that was a pretty big clue. I first suggested we unplug the router, wait 10 seconds, and plug it back in to reboot it. I should say this is over the phone by this time we're chatting. But then I mentioned that she'd been knocked offline once before, and was this how we rebooted her router? Luckily, her memory is far superior to mine. She said, "No, last time you didn't have me unplug it, you had me reboot it with a toothpick and a little hole in the back." Well, off she went to get a toothpick after mentioning that she had a metal one, but figured that would be a bad idea and she should get a wood one. Another point for Merle. Sadly, after rebooting the router, her Mac still wasn't online. I asked her to look at the Wi-Fi signal in the indicator in the menu bar, and she told me that it was grayed out. I asked her to click on it and see if she could see their Wi-Fi network. Oddly, she could see the name of their network from when they lived in their previous house, but I was pretty sure that the new network had a new name. Steve's sister had set it up before we got there and hadn't used the same name or password. I had her trot over to the other room to Ken's Mac and asked her if she could see what his computer was connected to, and sure enough, it was a new name. I had her trot back to her room and explained this was actually all an elaborate method to get her more exercise. She said, "Hey, I need the exercise. That's cool." Anyway, this time when she looked at the Wi-Fi signal on her Mac, she could see the new network, but when she selected it, it queried her for the password. Now, it did explain that if she moved an iPhone or iPad close by, it would offer to enter the password for her, but her phone didn't offer it up. I've seen that before where maybe it fleetingly disappears before you can say, "Yes, please share this password." That's a really cool feature. I don't know if you've seen it where the iPhone will hand off a password to another device, but we didn't get that lucky. We were still waiting to enter the password on her Mac. No problem, though. Merle and Ken are both avid users of 1Password, so I was certain the password to the new network would be in her password vault. But oddly, it was not. I had her trot back to Ken's Mac, and again, oddly, it was not in his vault either. Well, that's not a big deal. Steve and I make a habit of adding some of their important passwords into our own 1Password vaults, and we always put in network passwords wherever we are, so I figured I'd just check ours. Well, oddly, for times 3 and 4, neither Steve nor I had recorded their Wi-Fi password. I have no explanation for how or why none of the 4 of us had recorded this password. This is so not like us. Well, at this point, I suggested to Merle that she try to find the original paperwork from when the network was set up by Steve's sister, because I remember that's where I discovered it when we set up their computers. Now, while she loves the geeky part of the experimentation, I can get her to do absolutely anything. I mean, she's, a little older than me, and she will crawl under a table, pull Ethernet cable. She's fine with that. But she really didn't want to go look in the files for a piece of paper. Again, I love her more every day. Well, she finally broke down and looked for the paperwork, but that was a bust too. Then I had a delightful idea. Merle would have been up for the execution of this solution, but I wanted to see it with my own eyes. So I asked her to log into Ken's computer, or I told her I wanted to log into Ken's computer to control it. Now, since Merle hadn't been exercised in a few minutes, I had her trot back to Ken's computer. I asked her to open the Messages app, and then I messaged Ken. She saw the message, and I asked her to open it up and look in the upper right-hand corner for the word Details in blue. When she clicked on that, I told her to click on the 2 blue rectangles, and that would prompt her to share Ken's screen with me. She did it in a snap, and I was in. Next, I clicked a button on my screen that allowed me to ask her permission to control the Mac, and she allowed it. So now I'm basically inside her house controlling the other Mac. Now, for my brilliant idea to solve this Wi-Fi problem. I realized that the password to their Wi-Fi router must be stored in Ken's keychain, and it's possible to expose the unencrypted text of this password. I opened his keychain access file, did a search for the name of their network, double-clicked it, and then clicked the box that said Show Password. It asked me to authenticate to Ken's machine, and Bob's my uncle. I could see the password to their Wi-Fi network. Now, perhaps most of you had thought of this sooner than I did, but I was quite proud of my little self for figuring out how to find this password from a distance. I don't often poke around in keychains, so even remembering that it's there was kind of a miracle. One big question remains, and that's whether her keychain has some kind of corruption as it lost this password in the first place. In the old days, there was a feature called Keychain First Aid, but that tool has been removed from Keychain Access. I did a bit of reading on how to repair a keychain in High Sierra, and it looked awfully convoluted. Definitely something I wasn't going to do over the internet. I'll probably noodle this for a while and attack it next time I'm there in person. If any of you have ideas on how to fix this problem, or maybe you know what that the problem has nothing to do with Keychain, I'd sure appreciate if you sent me a note about it at allison@podfeet.com. I'd love to fix it for her. Now, there's one more delightful part to the story about Merle and her geekiness. It took us an hour and a half to get her Mac online, but when she checked her Roku, it was still offline, so her Netflix was not available in the living room. She said, you know what, let's just give it a rest. We're both tired of working on this. In the morning, I got the most wonderful email, and I'd like to read it to you. She wrote, you inspired me. After much trial and even more error, I got Netflix back online. I kept remembering that you never got discouraged and always had a new idea on how to fix the problem, so I just couldn't give it up until I was done. I love that Merle is so geeky and unafraid to try this stuff. It makes her a real delight to help, and certainly her victories make me happy too. Of course, when it was all working, that darn Wi-Fi password was put in Ken, Merle, Steve, and Allison's 1Password vault. Yay, Merle!
That Merle's a good woman.
She is. She's amazing.
Very good.
All right, where am I?
You are on planet Earth. In the solar
What was I
system.
gonna do?
Sol.
I was going to do something when I stopped. Did I miss anything fun in the chat room?
Just a lot of theorizing about why people can't hear you in Discord, and there's no rhyme or reason.
Oh, wait. I think there's an input thing in user settings, isn't there? There's an input volume. Woo!
But that would explain why some people are hearing you well.
Okay. Oh, save. That's a good idea. How's that? Am I louder now? I just went from 42% to 100%.
Those who could not hear Allison well in Discord, any difference?
Now nobody's listening at all. It's about time. It's about space. Nobody's writing.
No change for Brett.
No change?
He couldn't hear you well, so he still can't on Discord.
But why? I just changed my input from 42%.
Can't share Steve's mic.
Steve's
no, no change.
Well,
Rick.
I
But
gave
Rick,
Steve my mic.
Rick, you could always hear her, so it shouldn't be. Well, Zoe still can't hear you. So we thought maybe it's iOS versus the Mac Discord.
Oh wait, she can't hear me at all.
No.
You know, I'm not showing a green circle. I don't understand why anybody's hearing me.
I see a green circle, and I couldn't see a green circle earlier for me in our earlier test. So something's going on with Discord. It's
let me hang up from Discord and go back in.
Yeah, give that a try.
I mean, it's real easy.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt anything. Bye, Podfeed.
Okay, can you hear me now? Now I have a green circle.
Okay. Any change, guys? And
Brett is wearing earplugs.
Oh, I think she hears you.
So I think you guys were hearing me from someplace else, the people who said they could hear me.
No, they were not.
How do you know?
Well, Rick confirmed that he was not. He had his YouTube, and I'm not wearing earplugs.
Brett.
He's not. Rick's not.
I'm not connected anywhere else. Okay, and Rick could always hear me?
Apparently.
Oh, crepes. I love it when it's random.
Yep. Non-repeatable.
All right.
Intermittent. All the things we love to diagnose.
That is cool. Yeah. All right. Ed Tobias is next. Steve, remind me to tell you about the text message. I asked Ed to come into the show tonight, and he had a very interesting excuse.
Okay.
Oops. That's not what I wanted to do.
Ed's a good guy, too.
What's that?
Ed's a good guy, too.
He is.
Almost as good as my mom.
Okay, so this is, we're going to call it Rasp Pi. And we'll copy this. All right.
Wait, Mac Discord. So Rush doesn't have audio. No audio.
Okay,
well, that's
Rush has
problem.
no audio?
Let me ask him.
Neither on audio? Wow. YouTube Live still working.
It's just 10 seconds behind.
Oh, that's bizarre. Well, maybe you should hang up, Rick, or Rush, from the live show listen and go back in. Well, it worked for me.
If you can't hear us, let's type it.
Oh, you type it. All right. Somebody who's listening, tell them what I said. I'm going to mute you, Steve, and keep going. This upcoming review was written and recorded by NosillaCast and personal friend of Steve and mine, Ed Tobias. We met him for coffee this week, and he showed off his website, edtobias.com, which was awesome, but how he built it was even cooler. Let's hear what he had to say. Ed has. Okay, Ed by M4A. There we go. Put him in there. Oh, I should change that to say HTTPS. Oh, and that should not say the MacCast. What? Wait a minute. Yeah. That's interesting. Adam. I just found a mistake in Adam's typo, or in Adam's website. Title. Okay. I think that's, let's see, and your, let's see. All right. Okay. Let's hear how this sounds. Even cooler. Let's hear what he had to say.
I want to describe how I used a Raspberry Pi as my web server. First, why did I need a web server to start with? Well, we take lots of family vacations, and our
Okay, I hope Levelator will increase that.
Yeah, he's a little bit quiet.
Yeah.
extended family back home likes to stay in touch while we're gone and share in our experiences.
So audio is good, isn't it? You aren't going to get to hear what he has to say because I have a lot of recording to do.
It's really good. Do you know what he recorded with?
I don't. We should ask him next time we have coffee.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
www.raspberrypi.org.
Well, I told you Ed was our people. Am I right or what? When we met for coffee and he showed us his website, I noted how beautiful his images were on screen. Not only does he take great photos with his big boy camera, but they were displayed in a beautifully fluid slideshow, and they moved in a carousel that was just delightful. When I told him how lovely I thought it was, he proudly proclaimed that he did it all in Bootstrap. Now that's incredibly fun because Bootstrap is what Bart has been teaching us in Programming by Stealth. I asked him if he had already known Bootstrap when Bart started in on it, and he said no, he learned it from Bart. Now, of course, he's way past us in developing with Bootstrap, as is Alistair on his site, but it was so cool to be sitting in a coffee shop with a guy Steve and I met in the 1980s at work and talking about how he learned from our mutual friend in Ireland. It's so cool. Have I ever mentioned that I love the NosillaCast community? All right, I think I have to turn on Do Not Disturb here. Where's Do Not Disturb? There it is, and I should put it on my watch. Somebody's pinging me. All right.
It's not me.
Do you want to bring me the thing I'm about to talk about, the Macaulay, so I can show people?
Yep.
Thank you. Macaulay.
Kevin is reminding you to save.
Oh, thank you. I have not saved lately. Copy link. All right. Takes a lot more time and effort to put those chapter marks in, you know. I got an email from a guy that didn't like a certain article that I did, and he said, "Yeah, I just turned it off when I heard that." And I was thinking, I go to all that work to put in chapter marks, and you couldn't just skip past what you didn't want to hear. This is what I'm going to be talking about. Tesla. See this cute, wow, this light is bright. I suppose I could turn down the brightness. Oh, I don't even have Do Not Disturb on my Mac, do I? Can you see that very well? There, it's better. Actually, if it was plugged in, it would have been better, and then I could have demonstrated it. But anyway, that's good. Okay, here we go. One of the many... Okay, nope. One of the many enjoyable events at Macstock Expo is the My Mac game show put on by Guy Searle and Tim Robertson. It's a trivia game, and you win real prizes if you successfully answer questions. Because My Mac is a fun, silly community, the rules of this game are, let's just call them adaptable to whatever's happening in the room. Well, this year, someone answered a question that correctly matched what they were looking for, but the answer they had was actually incorrect. I actually forget what question it was, but I hollered out the correct answer in my explanation, and for that, Guy awarded me with a prize. The prize was the Mac Alley Lamp Charge, a dimmable table lamp with 4 USB charging ports. The lamp charge is not going to solve world peace, but it does provide a solution to a common problem. Whether you're at your desk, in the kitchen, or beside your bed, you probably have the need to charge your devices, and you might need light. The Mac Alley Lamp Charge is a small cylinder 4 inches in diameter and 4.5 inches tall. Around the base are 4 USB ports with 2 at 2.1 amps suitable for normal-sized tablets and 2 at 1 amp suitable for phones. All 4 USB ports have what they call Smart IC. Unfortunately, I can't find an explanation on their website of what Smart IC actually is. Now, I presume it means that the port senses the power required, like Power IQ from Anchor, but that marketing term was never defined by Mac Alley, so I don't know that for certain. The light itself is a white cylinder that glows from the perimeter as well as the top with a really nice soft white light. To control the brightness, you simply tap the top of the cylinder to go from low, medium, high, and back to off. You can also turn the light off by simply setting your finger on top and holding it for about a half a second. If you turn it off with it on bright, the next time you turn it on, it will come on bright. If you turn it off with it down at low, it'll come on with low the next time you turn it back on. I would think of this as a very bright night light, but not a light on which you would depend to, say, light up a room. It's not tall, so that also limits the light reach, but the soft glow coming from the translucent white case is very pleasing. The Mac Alley Lamp Charge is $30 on Amazon. It's a lot more expensive from their website, so check out the Amazon affiliate link. Anyway, I'm thinking this will be great in a guest room, providing an evening light as well as a way for my nerdy guests to charge the devices, or I might keep it for myself at my desk. Who knows, maybe Merle will come and she's going to want to plug in all of her devices. I winged it there at the end. Did you hear that, Steve? That was exciting.
Yeah, usually that doesn't work out well, but I think you
pulled
winged it okay. Wing woman.
Wing woman.
So people were asking about how the as Rose puts it, the Renault is coming along.
Oh, give him that picture of the the way the cabinet got installed.
Yeah, let me pull that one up.
You got to tell him the story first of what, because otherwise it just looks silly.
Yeah, wow, this is taking a long time. Okay.
Is that all of the? Did we really only have 3 blog posts? I feel like I'm missing one.
Well, you still have one more, right?
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. I'm at 19 minutes. That's okay. All right. So I'm gonna do. Let me do the Patreon ad, and then I'll let you come back in and.
I'm missing.
After you find the picture.
Was that from you?
I put it in the shared album.
Shared album. There we go.
All I can see is my toe over here. I've got my toe's turning purple now. You guys want to see pictures of my purple toe? If you haven't seen it from the outside, it's even better.
Okay, so is now a good time to tell them about the story?
Yeah, tell the story real quick.
So yesterday, was it yesterday?
No, Friday.
No, Friday night, right. So our laundry room was getting worked on, including all new cabinetry above the washer dryer, and also where the sink is, a new cabinet.
And this is after they redid all of the walls. They flattened them from being this textured stuff. They painted them to within an inch of their life. Everything is done painted. All they got to do is put in this cabinet.
Right. So they install the cabinet in its raw form. It still doesn't have the countertop or the sink, but the cabinet's bolted to the wall. They leave, and about a half hour later, I'm putting the trash cans back to the side of the house because the trash man had come by that day. And I go up to the next to the house, and there's water dripping from the outside of the stucco wall.
Dripping down. Call it dripping. It was coming down the driveway.
Okay, let's call it a small waterfall. a continuous drip, many drips. And it was, it had me concerned. So immediately, and it happened to be right at the same location about what I figured was where they had installed that cabinet on the inside of that wall. So I ran inside, looked at that cabinet, the angle stops that were just installed were dry, no problem there. But I looked underneath the counter, the newly installed cabinet, and there's a good big puddle there. So what's happening is evidently it's leaking inside the wall, which is the worst thing that can happen, right?
I hate when that happens.
Oh man. And so I turned the water off, get on the phone with the chat with our contractor, and to his credit, he came within a half hour. And he had
that poor guy was home. Was what 2/3 of the way home to Santa Monica on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And had to turn around and drive back and come to our house and wet solder to fix things, right?
Yeah, I figured what had happened was the person that installed it, which wasn't him, it was a cabinet installer, had brought this cabinet in and had hit the copper pipe coming out of the wall and maybe busted it on the inside. That's the only thing I could figure. And Ewald, who was our contractor, said, no, I know what it is. It's not that.
And I tried to tell him what it was. He said, I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Yeah,
I guarantee it. I know what it is.
And sure enough, he was right. It turns out when they install these cabinets, they use like 3.5-inch screws through the cabinet into a stud. Well, some studs actually have copper piping through the middle of them with a hole bored through it. Now, if you're built to code, you put a plate in front of that stud. So if someone tries to drill or accidentally drill something through the wall, not knowing there's a pipe behind that stud or in that stud, you won't hit the pipe. As he exposes the wall, this is cutting away. In fact, let me drop it in the in the Discord chat so you can see what this guy had to do.
New.
This is the
brand new.
This is what it looked like. This is a brand new wall that had just been finished, right? And he had to cut this away. And if I blow this up, you can see one plate is still there, but a couple plates have been removed. And sure enough, one of those 3.5-inch screws went right through the plate into that horizontal copper pipe at the top of the opening there. And that was the leak. So that
was awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun Friday night. But
yeah, that guy did a great job fixing it, but still, it was a little stressful wondering, are we gonna have, actual water for the rest of the weekend?
Yeah, same for protecting wires, right?
Yeah.
But I have to end it with this. It turns out this house was built almost 30 years ago, 89, 90. So at the time, the code had the requirement for these plates, but the plates I think are now thicker because the screwdrivers, the electric screwdrivers people are using, they're like 18 or 20 plus volts. They have so much torque and they're ratcheted, they go right through these plates. So they've got to put thicker plates on to protect from the more advanced.
To catch your attention, they would.
Right?
So
you noticed it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that was our Friday night.
So that was fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
You asked how the renovation was going.
Yeah, I knew that would launch into a story, but I guess it was okay.
Did you put the picture in? Oh, there it is. Yeah,
it's right there.
Let's look at what Rush. Oh, Rush found his problem. My press were not set correctly. Could have been a Discord update. No, Rush. I got to tell you, it just does it. It just screws with you all the time. I mean, it is. It's a problem. Discord has audio problems, no doubt about it.
Yep.
Adam Christensen's advice is to set everything to default. I can't do that because of the way I control and pipe audio, but for all you guys, you might want to just go default. All right. So I'm going to do an ad. I'm muting Steve. Back in April, I brought you the sad news. Wait a minute. I did that already. Why am I doing Reggie twice? We don't want to be sad twice. It's supposed to be Patreon. The star of the ad is in the house this week. Here you go. You may have noticed that the NosillaCast is not supported by ads. Creating the show is not free. Says, between hosting fees, domain registration, software and hardware tools, the cost does start to add up. One way we fund this great adventure is via Patreon. Just this week, Frank Petrie went over to podfeed.com/Patreon, and he pledged a dollar amount per week to support the continued creation of the podcast. It means a great deal to me that Frank and so many of you have pledged your hard-earned dollars to help keep the show going. Now, keep in mind, if you can't afford to do this, I do not want you to do it. Okay? Deal? Make sure this is right for you and your family, and we'll muddle along if you can't help out that way. If you can't afford it, don't feel guilty either. Maybe just assuage your guilt by telling a friend about the NosillaCast and chit-chat across the pond and encourage them to join in the fun. So thank you so much to Frank for your support, and anyone who can't afford it, head on over to podfeet.com/Patreon. Go Frank! Woohoo! Let's see. Somebody's texting me. Is that Steve?
That was me.
Okay. Steve is saying a lot of people are asking about opening up the Everyone Can Chat. Well, at any time, you guys can go into Everyone Can Chat, but we won't be in there. I mean, well...
Have we enabled that?
You know, we could go in there.
Have we enabled that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we could go in there. Neither one of us are listening to that chat, so it might be okay. Let me see what happens. I'm going to move in there and see what happens.
Well,
okay,
maybe...
Rush went in there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess here's the question. So do you want people to be able to chat while you're talking and therefore be in different channels?
I don't know. It's up to them what they want. So we can only be in one channel or another. I'm actually in the Everyone Can Talk channel right now.
Okay, I just moved there too.
Okay. Uh-oh. Frank says I never said I could afford it. That sounds like a problem if you're donating to something you can't afford to. That's a choice you need to make. Okay, and you'll notice I never tell you when somebody leaves, because the only thing I will say is sometimes I'll say somebody left and that was good, because that's for them, for their family. Yeah. If that's what's right, that's what's right, you know?
Yeah, that's right, Sandy. You won't be able to hear Allison if she's in Everyone Can Talk and you're in Live Show Listen. So I think you have to pick one or the other, right? You can't listen to both. You just listen to...
Yes, she's not in this room hearing you.
Right. I'm back.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Live Show Listen.
All right. So I guess it comes down to how the users want it, how you listeners want this done.
Yeah. If you guys want to be able to talk, you're going to end up talking on top of us, because we're not going to be able to hear you. So we aren't going to be taking turns. I think it would be, anarchy.
Here's a way to do it. We could stay in Live Show Listen, and people who want to talk with each other can all go to Everyone Can Talk. So that if they don't want to hear us and they just want to talk to someone, you go and Everyone Can Talk.
Actually, yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a way to separate the two if you want them separated.
Yeah, Kevin, that means you wouldn't have to ever listen to me at all, and you wouldn't be able to say the that annoying woman in the corner. See, it would work if we would take turns with you, but you're just going to have people talking while we're talking. Because Steve or me are always talking, right?
And people may want to talk over us, just like the chat room behaves, right? That people chat over you while you're talking.
I don't see how that could work. Do you, Steve?
I think
it'll
it works
just be
if we're
people trying to talk. Right, it does. If you want to go chat with somebody, you can always go into Everyone Can Talk.
Yeah.
But then you won't hear us.
Right.
But that makes sense, because do you want to have to be going, I'm talking loud because Allison's too loud? You know, that's not going to be.
I kind of like that.
You like how my mic completely went bananas here? Yeah. All right, Sandy wants to hear us. Zoe says nobody wants to hear her.
I want to hear Zoe talking.
I do. Okay, Rush's audio is finally sorted out. Good. Well, you've learned a new skill.
Just save those settings. they may
all right, it's 5:48. I got to keep going. Steve, goodbye.
Do you still have another segment here?
I've got a huge segment. Okay, I'm only 20 minutes recorded. Goodbye.
You better get going, Podfeet.
In the past few years, I've been highly influenced by a few people in tech. Steve, how could you not notice that I said buy, B-U-Y? I can't even believe you.
You pronounced it perfectly, though.
Why do I have an editor?
Maybe you were thinking of buying something.
Yeah, okay. Why do I have an editor if you don't catch spelling errors like that? All right, here we go. In the past few years, I've been highly influenced by a few people in tech. Bart Buchatz and his Programming by Stealth series, of course, but also Ray Robertson from his AppleScript bootcamp at Command D, and Sal Sagoyan, like I just mentioned earlier in the show. Listening and learning from these people doesn't mean that I can replicate what they do, but the gift they give me is their teaching that we can learn to automate things that are repetitive to us. They kind of just open my mind to thinking, hey, I could do that too. I could do this kind of thing. Well, years ago, I asked my good friend and NosillaCastaway, Dorothy, also known as Matt Lurker in the chat room, if she'd help me automate the mechanics of producing my podcasts. She did a lot of work on it, and much of it is automated now, but there was one piece that eluded automation. When you receive a podcast episode, you'll see things like who produced it, the website URL, the episode will have a title, the genre will be podcast, and there will be album artwork embedded in the MP3 file so you can identify the show at a glance. All of that information is stored in what's called the ID3 tags. The ID3 tags are specified at id3.org, but there's no single way to add the ID3 tags to the audio or video files we create as podcasters. For many years, I used iTunes to add my ID3 tags, and part of Dorothy's efforts were to automating that process in iTunes. But after a while, I realized it was a lot of overhead to pull an uncompressed audio file into iTunes, tell it to compress the file, and then put in all of the ID3 tags, once a week per show I produce. Even with her automation, it was still kind of tedious. Around that time, I discovered the desktop version of Auphonic Leveler, which not only compresses my files. I'm going to fix Leveler. Steve left. Guess he's bored. Around this time, I discovered the desktop version of Auphonic Leveler, which not only compresses my files, the job iTunes was doing, but it also adjusts them to the loudness standards, which is awesome. It doesn't add these ID3 tags, though, that I've been talking about. I found a lot of people use a lightweight app called ID3 Editor from pa-software.com for $15 on Mac or Windows. It does exactly what it says on the tin, and it does it easily and quickly. You first go through the interface to enter all of the tag data, but then you can save that tag data into a file, including adding the album artwork. The next time you want to add ID3 tags to a recording, you simply go to File, Load Tag Data, and find your saved tag data file in the Finder. Since every episode has a new title, you might want to add that freshly each time. In my case, it was a simple text expander snippet to add the title. So what is the problem to be solved? After 559 episodes of Chit Chat Across the Pond, I was really tired of dragging my MP3 file onto the ID3 editor icon in my Finder menu bar and then going all the way up to the menu bar and pulling down to load tag data and then selecting the tag data file from the Finder, like an animal. Even though I then, it wasn't that bad, but then I had to use my text expander snippet and then save and then quit. I know, the whole process takes 15 seconds if I round up? Well, you might also be wondering why I'm only talking about Chit Chat Across the Pond and not the NosillaCast. Well, after I bought the desktop version of Auphonic Leveler, I got the request to add chapter markers to the NosillaCast, and the only way I could do that easily was by using the web-based version of Auphonic Leveler. The web-based version does a lot more than the desktop version. Not only does it compress and level the audio, it also automatically adds the ID3 tags and uploads the resultant file to my server. The only problem is that Auphonic charges by the number of hours processed, and since there are no chapter markers in ChitChat, it seemed kind of a waste of money to use the desktop app, and so I decided to do the ID3 tag editing locally. All right, back to the 15 seconds to go all the way up to the menu and grab the tag data. I know that that's only been, 2.39 hours of my life lost in all of the time I've been doing Chit Chat Across the Pond. For some reason, it really bugs me to have to do that. Well, I begged the developer of ID3 tags or ID3 editor to at least add a keystroke to the menu to select load tag data, but they haven't updated it since Sierra that I can tell, so they are not really listening to me. I also worked a long time on trying to get Keyboard Maestro to do it for me. I added the keystroke using, what is that thing in System Preferences where you can add a keyboard keystroke? Doesn't do anything. Along my way with Keyboard Maestro, I had a few small victories, and it would work for a while, but it was horribly fragile, and it failed way too often, so I gave up. This week, I had had enough. I thought, why don't I just write my own script to add my own ID3 tags? Now, remember those names I mentioned at the beginning? They inspired me to think crazy thoughts like this, to realize it's not that hard. I should be able to figure this out. Bart, even more than the others, has taught me that if I just keep digging and experimenting and researching, I can eventually figure these things out. Spoiler alert, I figured it out. My goal was to write an automator service where I could right-click on an MP3 file, choose my service, or choose services, and have it add all of the ID3 tags in one quick go. Why does it say my service? My service. Choose services. That's not all right. I think that's an autocorrect. Back here. I'm going to save and keep going. I knew that Automator itself would not have all the tools I needed, but it would allow me to add scripts inside it using the simple run shell script block, and then I knew I could write a bash script inside it. Bart taught us about bash shell scripts in the very first episode of Taming the Terminal. I learned that if you can get a command to work in the terminal, you can then put that command in a bash shell script and run it from the Automator. So if I could just find some command line commands and get them to work one at a time in the terminal, I could pile them together to make my own personalized ID3 editor. Well, I started trolling the internet for ideas, and I found a command line editor called ID3v2 written by Myers Carpenter. Now, he has his files up on SourceForge, but we'll get into that in a minute. Myers wrote this application when the ID3 spec originally moved from version 1 to version 2, hence his name ID3v2. He wrote it in May of 2000, and he hasn't done any improvements to it in 10 years. The last cleanup update was 4 years ago, but it sounded like it was designed to do exactly what I was looking for. Unfortunately, ID3v2 was hosted on the now dumpster fire service SourceForge, like I mentioned. One look at it, and I remembered Bart explaining that if you download from there, be careful because they actually inject things into the code that you're downloading. I wanted that program, but I had to find another way to get it. I decided to check on Homebrew. This is a repository available at the command line in the terminal. I could have simply typed brew install ID3v2, and that would have done the trick. But I've become a fan of the GUI interface for Homebrew, playfully entitled CakeBrew from cakebrew.com. With CakeBrew, you can search and view search results in a really nice interface, but it's not actually that much easier than command line. Its power for me, though, is that it has an update section where it shows you the outdated installations you have from Homebrew and a simple button to update all. I pretty much never would have thought to go back and update the apps I've installed using Homebrew without seeing that over in CakeBrew. Now I have my tool to edit my ID3 tags. The documentation on ID3v2 is kind of weird. If you make the right mistakes, it will reveal the commands you need. Normally with command line stuff, you can type man for manual plus the name of the tool, and it'll spit out the manual and tell you what you can do. That sort of worked with ID3v2, but there's a whole nother set of keys that you need in order to unlock the magic. The ID3.org folks who define this stuff have determined a set of flags you can set in your file, and these flags are what turn into ID3 tags. I eventually found the magic decoder ring that explained which flag turned into which tag. Let's say I want to enter the title tag for the episode. That would seem to be a useful thing. The title flag is -TIT2, so the command is really simple. ID3v2 --TIT2, then I put in my title and then the name of my audio file. I started by issuing commands like this into the terminal and then opening the resulting file with my good old pal ID3 editor to see if it had crammed the right information into the right place. Once I got a command to do my bidding, it was a simple matter to plop that command into my bash script over an Automator. But of course, my shiny new command that worked perfectly well in terminal did nothing at all when I tried to use it in Automator. Just going to stop and do a save. I don't want to record this twice.
I have to mention this. So Kaylee.
Oh, Kaylee's here.
So she was talking about how it's pretty hot and humid, and people don't have air conditioning. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Anyway, she was commiserating, or I was with her, and I asked. So I was asking, what's a good time to go? August is not a good time to visit Osaka. Frank said, I got to read. Frank says, I can't go to Japan now that I signed up to Patreon. Oh.
Frank's going to be going to get his food stamps after the show for this, right? That's pretty funny, Frank. This is,
Oh.
why do I think we have a running gag starting here?
You should save, by the way. Wingman insists.
Good.
Oh.
I want to read this stuff Kaylee's writing, but I should keep moving. Kaylee, are you proud of me for writing a bash script this week?
I don't know.
She'll appreciate
I don't know
it.
if she came in. Was that during or after?
Well, I'm still in the middle of it, Steve. Okay.
Right.
Here we go. The first thing. The first reason things didn't work was a classic problem. Commands like this ID3v2 I've installed from Homebrew live in a directory, and you have to tell the bash script explicitly where that directory is. It's not that hard to do, though. In the command line, you can find out where your program is by typing which and the name of the program. So which ID3v2 tells me it's in the directory /user/bin. I Googled the syntax to tell my bash script how to add that directory, and my first speed bump was elegantly leapt over. The next, and I thought really fun part, was figuring out how to break out the file name to use it as the title. As you know, all of my podcast episodes are in the form ccatp_year_mm_date. Anyway, the file name has that with the extension .mp3, and I wanted the title to be the same, but without the extension and without the giant file path to get to the file. Again, after some Googling, as Bart taught me, a new variable in my bash script was born, stripped of everything but the title. Now I could use that variable name in that flag tit2 instead of hard coding it. Around this time, I got all of the flags working one by one, and I was quite proud of my little self. I wrote a tweet that said, "I've spent the last 3.5 hours writing a script that will save me 15 seconds a week." I got a lot of fun responses, but my favorite one was for Bart. He wrote, "I'm gonna call it. On 15 August, @Podfeet officially earned her coder wings." I got to tell you, that made me so happy. As Bart would say, I was chuffed. Well, at this point, everything in my little script was working, except I hadn't yet figured out how to add the album artwork. There was a flag for it accessible with ID3v2, but it simply didn't do anything when I tried to point over to the album artwork and say, make that tag go in with the MP3 file. After quite a bit more of the Googles, I discovered what I should have thought of on my own. Adding the image isn't like an attachment to the MP3 file. It has to be embedded inside the audio file itself. So just setting a flag in ID3v2 was not going to do the job. One site suggested using the lame encoder, which is normally used to convert audio into other formats. I gave that a whirl, and technically it did work. The command is quite simple. It's lame-ti space the name of the logo file and then the name of the audio file. The downside is that it took 43 seconds to do what I do in 15 seconds with ID3 Editor today. The bigger downside is that that lame was actually re-encoding the file. So you would get a double compressed MP3 file from me, which is definitely not what we want to do. On Stack Overflow, I found the suggestion to use the FFmpeg library to embed the album artwork. You may have never heard of FFmpeg, but I guarantee that you use it all the time. I have yet to find a video encoding decoding application that doesn't use the FFmpeg library. VLC, VidConvert, Handbrake, even WMP, Windows Media Player all use FFmpeg to encode the video. Now you might be wondering what a video encoder application has to do with putting album artwork into an audio file. It turns out that FFmpeg can work on audio files too. It's pretty much content agnostic. Now I'm going to tell you a little side story to explain why I know anything about FFmpeg in the first place. When podcasting was first getting off the ground, I thought it might be an effective communication and instruction tool within the company where I worked. I launched a project I called the Raytheon Podcast Network. Now, the calculator nerds amongst you will appreciate that I purposely chose that name because the acronym is RPN. Now, at the time, I was a manager of around 170 computer scientists and engineers, and so I tapped a couple of them to help me with this project. We got audio off the ground fairly quickly for podcasting, but video proved to be harder for a lot of reasons, mostly blob sizes and databases for those who care. Around the time we got into video, I was reassigned from being a manager to becoming an IT fellow, which is a purely technical job with no one working for me at all. Now I only had influence over the guys working on the Raytheon Podcast Network, but not positional authority. That becomes important to the story. The higher-ups had made a decision that every video podcast should have a disclaimer slide up front in the video showing the company branding and a warning not to share these files outside of the company. So picture this. People across a 60,000-person company will be submitting videos that all might be of a different aspect ratio, they might be different formats, and we have to figure out how to cram an image file into the front of each video they send that matches these parameters exactly, all without re-encoding the file and making the quality worse. I asked one of the guys to work on this, and I got my first rude awakening to what it means to not have positional power. He said, "Why don't you do it?" Well, the correct answer should have been, because I'm a mechanical engineer with no programming background, and this is all on Linux at the command line, and that's what your profession is. But instead, I took the challenge. I decided to figure it out myself. Well, it took me longer than it's taking for me to tell this story of how I saved 15 seconds on adding ID3 tags, but I finally did figure it out at work. And of course, I did it with FFmpeg. So back to the story I'm trying to tell here. It was a pretty easy task to write the code for FFmpeg to embed the artwork into my file with the aid of the Googles again. But there was one little problem. Adding ID3 tags can be done with a file while it's open, and you can save that file back onto itself when it's done. But FFmpeg is doing much more serious brain surgery when combining these two files, so you have to save out of FFmpeg into a new file name. For reference, let's call that file name out.mp3. The problem is, I don't want two files. I only want one file, and it should be named the original name. So my original file has the correct name, ccatp_year-month-date, but then I've got the one with the album artwork is in out.mp3. Well, no worries. In Linux, you can simply enter move out.mp3 into the original file name. This should move the first file into the name of the second file, overwriting the first file. I tested this part from the command line, and of course, it worked perfectly. We're now about 3 days into my work writing a 10-line script, and this is when things got way harder. While my command to move this out.mp3 file into the original name worked perfectly in the terminal, it did nothing at all inside my script inside Automator. Well, I figured it had to have something to do with that path nonsense we talked about earlier, but the move command should be available everywhere. I shouldn't have to tell this shell where the move command is, right? I thought maybe it was a permissions problem, like maybe Automator doesn't have my permissions, but that wasn't it. My script was creating that out.mp3 file just fine, and it showed in terminal as being owned by me. So Automator is me as it's writing, so why can't I get to that file? Well, I chatted briefly with Dorothy about it right before she went on a big trip, and she asked me to send her the script so she could look at it. But I didn't give it to her. I knew full well she would be able to fix it for me, but I desperately wanted to figure this out on my own. I fiddled with it on and off for a few days, completely neglecting writing much of anything else for the podcast. Then I had lunch with a friend of mine from work who recently retired himself. His name is Chris, and he's one of the smarter guys I got to work with over the years, and it turns out he listens to the NosillaCast. I noodled it with him at lunch, and then when I got home, I pinged him on messages to ask if he'd like to take a look at the script himself in a screen share. Well, we poked and prodded my script for about 45 minutes, and neither of us could see the problem. It didn't make any sense. We even took the script and made a text file out of it and ran it from the command line outside of Automator. Dorothy had suggested this idea too, but I didn't remember how to do that without some adult supervision. From the command line, that little move command inside the script still would not move the file. And I said move, and where'd it go? Didn't know remember. That's right. It's fine. No remember. Am I missing anything, Steve? People leaving yet?
We've had a few leave, a couple, but most people are still here.
All right, good. I'm going as fast as I can here. Oh, the podcast actually could be long enough. It's 38 minutes. That's good. All right, keeping going. Sadly, we hung up the call without getting it fixed. Then I used my favorite dashboard app. Remember Dashboard? The app is called Time Scroller to see if it was daytime for Alistair Jenks in New Zealand. And since it was 4 p.m. on Saturday for me, I could see that it was 11 a.m. on Sunday for him. I pinged him and he jumped online with me. After trying both messages and Discord to connect without success, audio's hard. Anyway, we pulled out the old standby Skype and got to work on a screen share. I'd like to say that he instantly saw the problem, but it even took Alistair a while to spot it. In the script, my ffmpeg command creates that out.mp3 file. So I assumed, incorrectly, that since the script created it, the script would know where it put it. I was wrong about that. Alistair suggested I try adding the full path to out.mp3 in the command to overwrite the file, and Bob's my uncle. It worked. I wrote to Chris about it, and of course he kicked himself for not figuring that out, but then he wrote, quote, "My props to Alistair for resolving the issue," unquote. That made me really happy because, of course, Chris knows Alistair because they're both Nosilla castaways. It doesn't matter that Chris lives in Los Angeles and Alistair lives in New Zealand. Our community knows no bounds. Now, there's one last ID3 tag I haven't cracked the code on completely, and it's the URL that shows up in ID3 Editor. In the spec for ID3, it simply shows to set the flag WXXX, which doesn't do anything at all. If you dig deeply enough in the spec, you'll find that XXX means 3 more letters I haven't told you what to do with yet. I eventually found a list of 7 options for those last 3 digits. I tried every single one of them, and none of them filled in the field that shows in ID3 Editor for the URL. Oddly enough, that one flag is easily perturbed by commands coming after it in our script, like the ffmpeg command. So at Alistair's suggestion, I moved all of the flag commands to the end of the script, and ffmpeg is at the beginning. So I first add in the album artwork, then I overwrite the file, then I run the flag commands in ID3 V2, and now it works perfectly. The key thing in developing an application or even a tiny script is that as soon as you get it done, think of something else you'd like to do with it. Now, this application, or this automator script, I should say, works as a service just as I designed it. But then I realized right-clicking to select a service from a long list of services is actually kind of tedious to me. I'll probably make it into a standalone application and put it in my Finder window menu bar so I can just drag my files right onto it, just like I used to do with ID3 Editor. When I was on the MacCast with Adam Christensen, I told him about my script, and he said if I get it to work as an app, he'd like to have it too. That means I need to create a version that has some standard variables like location of the logo, location of the output file, those kinds of things that are not hard-coded just for me. I know Tom Merritt and Sarah Lane use ID3 Editor too, so I bet they'd like it. If I get all 3 of them to use it, that's a lot more 15 seconds that I will have saved my 7 hours of time on this. Of course, I'm not done with the 7 hours. I got to keep working. Anyway, I had a blast working on this, and I abandoned many of my chores and a lot of writing time, and even Tesla suffered as I skipped some of our afternoon walks a couple of times. But I had so much fun. I learned what I can do, and I'm very proud of my little self as a result. If you'd like to see my 33-line masterpiece, including comments and unnecessary lines, you can download it at the link in the show notes.
Seconds? I thought I edited that out.
Oh, did you actually take that out?
Yeah.
Steve, that was in there on purpose, and I had to override autocorrect to put it correctly, the way I wanted it.
Seconds? You sound like Gollum.
15 seconds. Dagnabbit, no wonder it wasn't there. Hang on, I'm putting it back.
Seconds. You mean groups, multiple groups of 15 seconds? Is that
Yeah,
why you said
seconds.
Is that a
like
real word?
Forbes's. Forbes's. That's pretty funny. I'm glad you heard it because I was like, I could have sworn I called it seconds. Oh,
Precious.
that's funny. All right, we're coming into the home stretch.
You should do a save.
Oh, should I?
Yeah.
There's a way to go.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin.
All right, here we go. Mute. Well, after that long story, that's going to wind us up for this week. Do not forget to send in your dumb questions, comments, and suggestions by emailing me at allison@podfeet.com. And you can follow me on Twitter @podfeet. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. Podfeet.com/Patreon. Podfeet.com/Facebook. We still have a Google Plus group, and it's still a lot of fun over there. Podfeet.com/Google Plus. If you want to join the live chat, podfeet.com/chat. And if you want to use those Amazon affiliate codes, be sure to go to podfeet.com/Amazon. And if you want that coupon code for the Down Home Scripting Camp, what is it? It's podfeet. No, it's not podfeet.com. It's just podfeet. Anyway, if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed.
Boom.
Woo. Boom.
You know, you've kept people late for class a quarter after the hour, Allison.
Yeah, that's because somebody had to tell a really long story about their plumbing.
Well, you asked me to.
Oh, listen to him. Listen to him. It's always my fault.
No, I'd say 90% of the time, though.
Did anybody notice that we have, whoops, wrong
Wow.
side, flame lights?
Yes.
Oh,
Flame lights.
John's still here. Nelson's not still here. Tell him about the new podcast you're listening to.
I did.
Maybe other people will be listening. Oh, you did?
Yeah, I chatted it up. Well, you already lost your lights. You're going so late, you lost your lights.
Jeez.
Now the phone is on. All right.
Well, I am done recording. Did anybody notice that the video of my screen doesn't look as good? Did you show it to him?
Let me put that back on. Hold on.
239.
Let me put the full screen on.
Ooh, they'll definitely notice, won't they?
Whoops. Oh, we
Actually,
have to.
that looks really good.
Well, that's the old. That's not the right one. That's pulling.
Yeah,
from-
because there's nothing in it.
Right. I will have to change that one too.
It smells like baboli,
Oh, I got the barbecue going.
but it smells like baboli.
Hopefully, it's not burning down there.
Doesn't it smell like
I may
baboli?
need to rush out quickly.
Okay, I should probably let people go. Let's hear the music here. Castaways. Thanks for a little lower. For listening, stay subscribed. It's not bad. Experimenting with ways to do that. There we go. All right, I think we should call it. I'm going to go back and read all the live chat. I especially want to see if Kaylee is proud of me. All right.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
By the way, before you go,
Yeah?
Kaylee was very proud of you.
Pat myself on my
But-
little
but
pumpkin head.
She said, "Dashboard? I haven't used that in ages." It's like,
It is the only thing I've ever used dashboard for, but I still use it all the time.
all right. Are we going to cut this baby
All right.
off?
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. No, you say goodbye last.
Goodbye.